Hello, hello, hello. It has been a while. I'm pretty sure the last episode was back in September of 2025, which was 9 months ago, 10 months ago, 8 months ago, something like that. And honestly, I really didn't expect to disappear for this long. But life has had other plans, like it does for so many of us. And you're probably wondering a few things. If you've been here before, you're probably wondering, dear Cristiano, hang on a second. Wasn't it the Queer Quest podcast? Wasn't it the Total Boss podcast? And you would be correct in saying all of those things because at first, when I started this podcast 4 or 5 years ago, it was the Total Boss podcast. And then it evolved and I opened up Queer Quest, which was the world's, first online personal development platform for people in the queer community. And so I created the podcast to go with that evolution. And again, when you've had some time away to kind of look over everything and review things and kind of just take a step back to focus on yourself, you realize that there's an evolution as well, which is why it is now going to be all about Dear Cristiano. Because really, where I want to go with this is actually about really having some deeper conversations that I want to be having or that I have been having with myself. I want to share them with the audience because I believe that sometimes things can be too perfect. Sometimes things can be too all of the same. And I want to talk about the things that maybe are a little bit deeper than that, which is why, again, I'm rebranding the Queer Quest podcast to Dear Cristiano, because I believe it's important to start having those deeper spiritual and, healing conversations with myself, because we all go through a journey in life. We all have our own journey in life. We talk to bazillions of different people and walk down different paths and take on different aspirations and goals and dreams. But ultimately, at the same time, we have a lot of things that are in common as well around how we truly feel inside. And the reason why this change feels aligned to me, because as I was looking back, I took a break, a long break. I was at a point last year in September, I'd been, doing this whole online coaching thing for over 5 years. Now, I'm someone who has to do all of the content creation, all of the marketing, all of the sales, all of the conversations, all of the admin work. And yes, I've had different team members in the past, but sometimes you're not always at a place where you can keep someone on, or you go through different flows. And in business, if you're not constantly on top of everything, things can fall backwards. You can take a step back and realize that, hey, I need to review everything. Is this something that I'm really still truly passionate about? Is the coaching and all of the things that go on with having an online business something that I'm truly aligned with? Now, if you asked me this a year ago, I would keep on the same old story and say, this is what I've always wanted to do. And, deep in my heart and all of the things where you talk about something and you just keep telling the story. Because I was telling a story for quite some time about how I needed to show up. And if I showed up and I had failed or it wasn't working out, that ultimately said something about who I was. And so for me to take this break, it was really about me saying to myself, hang on a second, what do you want? How do you feel about yourself? Because all of the other things out there, they're really just smoke and mirrors, right? Because what someone on the internet says about me doesn't matter. What someone in Timbuktu or in, Alabama or in, Birmingham, all of those things don't really matter because those people, in some regards, aren't even real to you, right? They're just a figment of some sort of internal imagination out there. And are they speaking a part to me, kind of, and am I, and a part to me that I'm maybe taking a feeling towards? And is that becoming me? Or was that my voice internally that's now represented externally by other people? Because again, if I don't feel that way about myself, then why is it bothering me? And so it's not that these things bother me continuously in the sense of like one thing will harper on, but it can be something that, like, when you are hearing little things left and right about what you're doing, or and you know that you're really trying to come from the heart and to try to do something, there can be some things that really you take personally if you've yet to work through those things. Now, many people in this community can probably relate to feeling insecure or feeling isolated or feeling lonely or feeling unworthy of things. When I started my business back in 2020, it was in the middle of COVID. Things were happening all over the shop. I was at a rock bottom moment in my life. And in order for me to pull myself out, I took one step at a time. I took the first step. I didn't know what the whole staircase was looking like, but all I knew is that if I took this one step and it felt good, I'd take the next step. And it kept going like that. And so I really pulled myself from someone who had low self-esteem, someone who was really struggling with his own self-worth by putting on a mask to the external world, saying that I'm this perfect human being. I was working in corporate. I had a team of 300 people, high salary, all of the things that people could say externally, oh, look, he's doing really, really well. But inside, not so much. And so, again, when people are telling you things that aren't really true, it also affects you in a way, because you can buy into that perfectionism. Oh, these people like me because I'm doing all these things that look good. When in fact, deep down, I'm actually struggling internally with my emotional state, with my mindset, with how I am feeling lonely in the world. And when you say these things to people, not many people know how to handle that. Because really, a lot of the time when people ask you how you are, they're not really asking you how you are. They're just, going through the motions, going through the politeness things to do. People don't a lot of people genuinely don't care. And I'm not saying that about everyone, because there are definitely people in our life that know we care. But I'm talking about the day-to-day people who are viewing you and seeing you this way and have their perceptions about you because of the way that you're portraying yourself, right? Genuinely, a lot of people wouldn't want to hear the truth that you're really struggling and that you have been dealing with, alcohol, substance abuse and things like that, right? People don't want to know about that, because that means if they hear it, what do they do with that? Some people don't know how to handle that and are not trained how to handle that. And so again, I was well aware that no one was going to pull me out of the struggle, the rock bottom, until I got there myself. Now, all of this aligned to going on a journey and going and creating the business, ultimately leaving my job, ultimately moving to Bali, ultimately growing the business, ultimately finding a great relationship, building that and building a life for someone. We've also have other businesses as well, which are thriving and doing well. And ultimately, when something's on the rise, sometimes you've got to realize, hey, I'm on this journey here, but this thing over here that we've started is actually taking off. And I need to maybe take some time away from this for a moment. And when I took the time off, I thought maybe I'll I actually think I said to myself, let's just take the whole September off, focus on this, get it all done, get it sorted out, and then we'll come back to it. And then in October, I said, look, let's just finish it off to the end of the year. Let's focus on some of these things here, and then we'll start it in the new year. Then the new year came, and then another month, another month, another month. And then ultimately, I turned 40 a month ago. And that's kind of where it sparked in me. And I kept saying, if I keep putting it off, is that because I don't want to do it? Or is it because it's been such a long time that it's really hard to get back into? Ultimately, it led to me realizing that it wasn't it was a mixture of one and two. Because one, I didn't want to continue doing it the way that it was going, because it just wasn't fulfilling me with doing all of the different things that are out there that you have to do, meaning all of the marketing and the content creation and the written posts and all of the videos you have to record and all of the chats that you have to have in Messenger and all of the calls you have to get on to talk about, if you could support someone and what it would look like and can they afford it and all of that stuff, right? That stuff was draining me of the real energy that I needed to have to support my clients. Now, the great thing about having this time off, I still had clients throughout that period. So it wasn't that I wasn't coaching. It was that I wasn't showing up online to get more new clients. I still had people that reached out to me, people that I had worked with in the past that were looking for more support. I finished up my Queer Quest program at the end of last year. So even all of those months, September, October, November, December, I wasn't online, I wasn't sharing, but I was still coaching. And so that's why I kind of continued that way, because I still had clients. And yes, I didn't have as many as I necessarily would have had a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but I had enough to keep going and to be happy with that, because I also had these other things that I was focusing on. And also I took some time off to focus on me and not have to worry about all of the stuff and having to have to put something out here, have to create this, have to do that. I just took a break. And it's nice to take a break sometime, isn't it? To really evaluate, is this the path that I'm going on is still aligned for me? Because when you're doing something where it's your business is you and you have to put yourself out there to the world, you want to be as authentic as possible. So I'm not someone who wants to go on there and say all these things, but I don't mean any of those things. This is not me. I've never been that person. And so I'd rather not say anything and be okay with that than to say these things and then over the time feel like I'm just not, this is not who I am. And I attract people that are not looking for what I have to offer. So for me, that is ultimately where it led to for me to have a break. Ultimately, it led for me to say to myself, look, if I'm going to come back and do this podcast, because this is where I'm starting. I'm just starting with the podcast, and I might post a few things throughout the week that come up, because if I'm having these conversations with myself and I'm doing it on the podcast, of course, there's a written component that comes to preparation of how I truly feel, the notes that I want to take that are going to align me to being in a place for it. So ultimately, I put QuickQuest on pause, the self-development platform. It's all available there, but I'm just not, going to be focused on that right now until I can really decide where I want to go with it and how I want to do it in a way that's going to feel aligned and feel enriching and feel great to me to do. So I'm focusing on this podcast, and I've said to myself that I'm going to put out one episode every single week. So we will be spending time focusing on topics and the whole point of me calling it Dear Christiano is because I want to be speaking to the parts of myself that are too afraid to speak, that have been hiding, that have been trying to live behind the mask. I'm really going to bring up those topics that I feel are important for us to share, the insecurities. And I'm going to be saying my failures. I'm going to be talking about the things that I'm not good at or the things that I'm not perfect at, because that's part of becoming a reformed perfectionist, because literally I spent most of my life being a perfectionist in that as well. And so, of course, QuickQuest is still going to be part of my stories, part of my journey. And when it gets to the right time that I'm ready for it to come out again, I'm going to share that with the audience as well. But of course, I really want to make sure that people realize that the rebrand to Dear Christiano, it really feels more personal and it feels expansive, because QuickQuest was all about building a movement. And I had a program last year and it was great. And the guys that went through the program really had a lot of breakthroughs. And that's where some of the clients took on having a one-on-one journey with me, because they went through the program and said, you know what, I need to do more of this. We've touched on the surface here, but I need some detailed support. And so that's fantastic. But this time, Dear Christiano is actually just about sharing the journey. So it's not about all of the ins and outs and all of the statistics and all of that. It's about sharing the journey and looking back on my life and sharing the parts that have helped me to take the next step forward, and also where I'm at right now and what I'm struggling with in life. Because again, being someone who was a perfectionist, I always thought that I had to be somewhere. I always had to have had the lesson. I always had to talk about it from a place of already arriving. Whereas Dear Christiano is actually about the journey and not about the destination. It's about the messy parts in the middle that make up all that hecticness. Because again, being perfect doesn't get you anywhere. People don't relate to perfection. People relate to the messy middle. And so I'm here to turn that mess into a message, because that distinction is kind of powerful. So really, throughout this 9 months, really the big things that I was dealing with, like I said, burnout from all of the years struggling, doing everything on my own, building businesses with my partner. We have our Airbnb business that we focus on here. My partner does most of the work because he's the person employed for the company, but I invest into that as well and help support him in doing what he needs to do. And, when we got on quite a few of those at one point, it became a lot, and he needed some support in other things around the house so that could go and do those things as well, because we have a whole home here. We have a whole lot of different Airbnbs, and, that comes with a lot of moving parts. And so I spend my energy helping in doing that. And, other projects, we've been supporting and helping, thousands of people to get food every single day in Lombok so that they can eat a healthy meal every single day. And that's been something that we've been working on and building from the ground up. So that's been something, again, another initiative that we have been working on, and which, of course, is why it's taken a lot of time and energy and resources, not just financially, but also time-wise, is to make sure that everything was legitimate, that that what we were investing in was something going to come to fruition. And I'm grateful to say that it really has, and it's been going for the past number of months now, and is feeding kids in schools, it's feeding elderly people, it's feeding people who are pregnant and breastfeeding, and making sure that they get the nutrients that they need every single day in order for them to thrive. Because some areas of Indonesia, they don't get they don't get a lot of food, and a lot of places around Asia have this kind of, you know similar issue. And so what that's really doing is causing, I don't use the word malnutrition, but causing people to not necessarily get the level of nutrients that they need. And so then the average height and of people and weight of people has been slowly declining, which ultimately means they're not getting the things they need. So there's been these initiatives around all of Asia, and so we took part in that initiative and have been really trying to help support other people. So that took a lot of time to really think about making sure that investing in this was the right thing. And to do that, it comes with a lot of visits and travel and all of those things. And ultimately, like I said, it's up and running, it's doing well. And, my partner is again heavily involved with that because, they 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 run the business in Indonesian, Bahasa Indonesia. He obviously that's his language. I learn no bits and pieces, but also it's not something for me to come in, and I don't want to feel like I'm someone who is someone from another country coming in and telling people what to do, So I come in and support on the sidelines and view it and help with certain things that I can, in the sense of like overlooking it, but like not actually doing any of the work towards it, because it's not my initiative. But we have definitely put in investments and support to make that happen, which is great. And so now ultimately that's up and running, and I have a bit more time, so I've decided to come back to this. Everything aligns for that as well. Of course, I was also ultimately feeling like I was having this creative block. I was feeling like blocked from, I don't know, knowing what I wanted to talk about, knowing what I wanted to go on the journey about. And ultimately that kind of made me feel stuck and lost. And then, you know, I was turning 40, so it was all like this kind of pivotal moment in my life where I was like, okay, I'm getting to this point. What do I do? Now, it's not a failure. It's all human experiences. I was never broken. I was just kind of really tired. I'd been spending years building and creating and coaching and producing content and constantly just showing up all the time, day after day after day after day after day. There was really hardly any days off. When you run your own business and you're doing all of the things, it's a 7-day-a-week thing. And yes, like I said, I had at different points, I had different assistants, online virtual assistants helping me with different things. But ultimately, I had to show up every day for something that I have to do, whether it was posting this or creating this or doing a video or writing that or having a coaching call or running a group call or going to on my own, getting support myself and getting up in the middle of the night doing courses for 6 days from 10 o'clock at night till 10 a.m. the next day. All of the things that not many people would go and do. I was doing that. And I'm not saying that in the sense of superiority. I'm saying in the sense of like, I was so committed to that at some point I really needed, and I realized that I needed to step back and actually listen to myself again, figure out what my voice was. Because when you're constantly creating, you're constantly looking for things and constantly searching and researching and trying to find topics that are interesting to talk about. So you don't just talk about the same thing all the time, because, you know, maybe a lot of people, some people just talk about the same thing all the time. Maybe that's the missing part. I've been talking about trying to have variety in what I talk about, so that was interesting to me. But in having that, maybe I lost my voice in that as well. And so maybe finding the voice has been where I'm at, and that's where I'm at. And so I'm sure that this is something that probably many people can relate to. So I've talked about really what's been the highlights for during these 9 months in my life, like I said, living day-to-day life in Bali, traveling, me and David growing our relationship, home life, spending my life with my beautiful fur animals. I'm such a animal person that I spend so much time with them as well. We got the businesses, the travel. We went to Japan last year. We went to Flores, Labuan Bajo. We're off to Vietnam soon. We're going to be going to Australia at the end of the year. So lots of things are happening when it comes to travel and enjoying life, but also ultimately the businesses and setting those things up and just all of the things there. And of course, a shit ton of personal growth, because for all of that experiences, I've always been someone who is self-reflective, self-aware, constantly trying to figure out those things. So this journey ultimately wasn't a straight line. It was up, down, left, right, in, out, all of the ways that you can go. And throughout it, I've never lost myself. I've continued to try to find myself. And, this isn't all about look at all the things that I've done. It's more about life was happening while I was living it. And sometimes, like I said, that 1 month that you take a break goes into 3 months, goes into 6 months, goes into 9 months, almost a year. And in that same period, I turned 40. And really, this is where the heart of the episode is today, is that, about a month ago, I did turn 40. And like many milestone birthdays, it made me really stop and look backwards before looking forwards. And then, so today I really wanted to share some of those deeper lessons that I learned throughout my 30s, because I was really trying to reflect back on the 30s and go, wow, like so much has happened in 10 years. It really, really has. Ultimately, it was the decade where I stopped caring what everyone thought of me. Now, of course, I'm talking about to a certain degree, because there's always going to be a part of us that has some level of, wanting to care what other people think of us. We're human beings. But ultimately, the one that was the people pleaser, the one that was the perfectionist, the one that was, trying to make sure that everyone else was happy at the expense of myself, that person said, sayonara, it said goodbye. I needed to put myself first. And ultimately, at the beginning of that 30s, I went and did the Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within. That was such a pivotal moment for me. And my parents gave that to me as my 30th birthday gift. I remember it so clearly. Like, that was something that really shifted. And it's when I started taking myself seriously. And when I started taking myself seriously, so did the rest of the world. That's when I got promoted. That's when things started to change. That's when my career took off. That's when I really started to really believe that I could do all the things. And I was seeing this, and I finished my counseling degree. All of the things that happened, I pivoted to do because of going to Tony Robbins here and allowing myself to believe that I could do that. And again, ultimately, stop caring what everyone else thinks of me. Throughout this same decade, I went to Peru. I did an ayahuasca retreat for 2 weeks again, which deepened me and healed me from many, many years of putting myself last and taking, abusing my body with substances because I thought that that was going to connect me with other people. Ultimately, healing isn't a destination, it's the journey, which is why this podcast, Dear Christiano, is about the journey. The healing is the journey. Me going through the healing, which is sometimes messy, is the journey. I don't want to get to the point of being healed and thinking that I'm evolved to the point where I don't need to continue to grow or to heal. I never want to have that mindset, because I always believe there's another thing to work through. Even when I've helped healed like this thing here, sometimes I'll go, oh, wow, like that little old chestnut still pops up, because again, it's all very layered and it's all intertwined to so many parts of us. We're such complex human beings here. And of course, there's so many aspects to our life. There's the spiritual, there's the mental, the physical, emotional, the relationships with other people, finances, joy, abundance, creativity, all of the things that we have. Like, it's so intertwined and complex that we can't just see A to B being the end result, because there's a whole myriad of other letters along the alphabet. And once you get to Z, it ultimately takes you back to A. Or you start at the numbers and you go 1, and then we all know that numbers never end, right? It's infinity. That's kind of like we as human beings. We ultimately are continuing to heal, to evolve, and it's never about the destination. That's a huge thing for me. It's never about the destination. So I want you guys to take that on board as well. As like, wow, if I've been living here thinking that it's about arriving somewhere, no, it's about you getting and taking that next step. And whatever step you're on right now is a step you should be focused on. Yes, it's great to have a vision of where you want to go, but ultimately, if you mapped out every part of the journey, then it wouldn't be a journey. It would just be a GPS map. And we don't live our life on a GPS map, right? Another lesson is not everyone comes with you. Now, throughout this journey from my 30s, I strengthened and also ended a number of relationships and friendships, ultimately because I made choices that were positive for me. When I was giving up all the partying and all the alcohol and the drinking and all the things that I was doing for most of my 20s and early 30s, and then when I got to my rock bottom and I decided that this is enough was enough, I needed to focus on my life and just really do the healing instead of talk about doing the healing. A lot of people that were my closest friends and closest allies and closest support systems went away, fell away, and ultimately, a lot of pain came from that, but also a lot of growth and healing and acceptance and realizations came from it because I thought that it was I don't know, like a notch on your belt or a trophy to say, look, I've been friends with these people for 10 years. Ultimately, that can be a great thing, yes. But also, what it can mean is that, like, hang on a second, like, these people that you met when you were partying, when you were 22 years old, you're still with them here, ultimately doing the same things, right? The test of a true friendship is when you step away from those things, who are the people that are still there? And I'm glad to say I've got some beautiful people that are still in my life from that, but ultimately I can say a lot of them have gone. 98% of them are gone. Today I can say it's okay. I love them, wish them well. Some of them never speak to me again because, I made choices and they didn't agree with them. Ultimately, that's okay. It really is. Not everyone's meant to come with you to every step of your journey. And like I said, I moved to another country, so also know that like time is gonna distance people. And that's just life again. Unless you have reasons to be connected, it's easy to go your own ways. And maybe at some point in my life we'll reconnect and all be a laugh and a giggle. And that's fine. But ultimately, not everyone's coming with you on your journey because life is about your journey. And I always thought at such a deep level that it was about everything was about them, about the group or about this person. And I wasn't focused on where I was going. I feel like I was lost, even though like if you ask someone, they were saying you clearly know where you're going. I didn't feel that way. What other people think of you is such an interesting thing. But it's also something that you shouldn't be focused on at all because not everyone comes with you. It's only you. So you need to focus on your vision for you and not worry about other people's dreams and goals or if you align with that or not, because ultimately you can say sayonara to people with absolute love. And maybe that takes time to do. Maybe that's not a day one thing. It could be a day 365. It could be a year 5 thing, Again, healing and growth isn't linear. It can come and go. So yeah, that's that. Now, of course, something else that's really important as you go through your journey and something that, in the 20s and 30s and now 40s, big things have shifted is that success means something different to me now. Again, I thought success meant that everyone loved me, that I was the richest, that I had success in business and all of the things. But success means actually having a really simple life. And what I mean by that is that I have the ability to do what I want each day. I don't have to come on here and do this podcast, right? I didn't have to restart it. And if I didn't, no one's going to be looking for me going, where did that guy who was doing that Queer Quest podcast go? I'm sure. I don't think people are out there, worried so much about the fact that I went off and I didn't even say anything. Some people did because some people messaged me and said, oh, I haven't heard from you or seen from you what's going on. But majority of people don't. And that's okay. Success means something different for me now. Success is having the ability to have a simple life, but also have an enjoyable life. Doing the things that I want to do on a daily basis and creating a schedule and a routine that really supports and works for me as well. Final lesson that I really wanted to share as on to that, because peace is worth more than proving myself. I don't need to prove myself to anybody anymore. My peace is the most important thing, and having a simple, easy life that I can enjoy. And if you've seen me, or if you go back and see my social media for the past 6, 9 months. I've had a few stories here and there. Often I'm sharing things that I like, but someone else has created that I believe that I love the message and I'm sharing it in my story, but I'm not posting things. I posted a couple of things about holidays that I've been on, but I'm not posting any of that stuff. So, and I haven't felt, oh my God, this worry about it. Whereas before, I would feel like if I don't post, people are going to forget it. And this, like I said, there was all these stories that came along with the actions that I was taking. And all of these stories were leading me to feel and take actions because of that. Now, these stories, they shift and they change. And I'm simply not about to retell my entire 30s. But what I'm going to say is that the story that I was telling, upon reflection, still a true story, both of them, but the story now is very different because I've seen it from a different lens. I've grown and evolved. I've taken a step away from this whole online thing. And, like me online felt like I was trying to be someone for other people, trying to feel like I was at the destination, that I'd already arrived. And now I'm just going to be myself, whether anybody likes it, whether anybody follows it, whether anybody even listens. Today, this lesson's a bit all over the shop, right? Because this is a welcome back post. This is a rebranding. This is a where have I been? This is a, I've just turned 40. So I really wanted to come on here and just talk and get into the point where I'm sharing, because that's the thing I've missed the most, is the sharing part. It's the my voice matters part. Like I said, whether anybody listens to this episode or not, fantastic. Either way, of course, I would love for someone to hear it and to get something from it, or to feel like, wow, like I understand you a bit better, or you're on the same wavelength as me and you want to continue the journey. Fantastic. But at the end of the day, ultimately, it's about me feeling and getting back into speaking and sharing, because that is something that I feel as a teacher, as a guide, as a coach, something is the most powerful thing that I have is my voice and my ability to keep talking and not be silenced and continue to find a way to speak in a way that is conducive to who I am and how I see life to be. Now, if I was to look back and ask my 30-year-old self, like try to talk to that 30-year-old self and give him some lessons, this is something that I think would be an interesting topic, because that 30-year-old person was in $30,000 worth of credit card debt, stuck in transition between, what am I going to do? I was finishing up my counseling degree. I was working casually at a job. There was options to move to different companies. I had fear around really following through. I was struggling with a lot of relationships with friends and never dating and never been in a long-term relationship, and putting out all of that account to self-worth, feeling like I was stuck in a place. It was all happening. I didn't think I would be someone who would have all of this stuff. And if I could look back on that person now, and I'd say, wow, like, all you need to do is just take the next step. If that step isn't the right step, take a step back and take the next step. It's all about just doing and enjoying the journey. Because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here living in Bali for the past 5 years. I wouldn't have found my beautiful partner who I've been, together with for almost 5 years. I wouldn't have built my coaching business. I wouldn't have been able to invest in other opportunities and run large teams and, be able to support other people here in Indonesia and have a whole lot of team members that work for the business that we have there as well. So the funny thing is all of that wouldn't have happened if I didn't take the next step. And again, I don't know what's at the what this will this like me starting this podcast and recording an episode every week, but all I needed to know is that it felt right to take this next step, this first step in reintroducing myself back out there and putting it out there and rebranding. And again, if no one listens, it's okay. I got to do it. I got to speak. I got to share. And ultimately, if people are listening, you're my kind of people. And I want you to listen, and I want you to talk to me about things that are on your mind so that I can continue to share those things from my perspective as well. I'm not saying I'm a guru or anyone's should follow me. Well, what I'm saying is if there's something to relate about, maybe us discussing it or it coming up, it could be a beautiful thing. And so that's really where I'm at. So, before I leave you guys today, I don't want to talk about goals and I don't want to talk about all of the topics that I'm going to talk about and all of that, because again, each week it's going to be brand new. I'm going to figure it out. This episode's going out and I'm going to be then figuring out what's the next episode. All I am committing to doing is bringing out an episode every single Friday here in Bali, which probably will be Thursday if you're in the United States and whatnot, or very early in the morning, depending on what time I do it. I haven't committed. I'll figure it all out and I'll post it and I'll let people know so that you can decide when it comes out, or you can follow, or you can, whatever it is. If you're even listening, fantastic, phenomenal. But I'm going to be talking about the vision. I'm going to be talking about, as I unfold what's happening in my life, the things that I'm struggling with, the things that I'm really striving for, because, I'm starting a new decade. And I always said to myself, when I get to 40, this is when I talk about, am I going to have kids? Am I going to build another business? Am I going to expand family? Am I going to travel more? I'm obviously going to continue healing. I'm going to continue to try to connect the community and talk up to the community in ways that are important. But again, outside of that, I'm going to let it unfold. I'm going to let it unfold in ways that are beautiful for me. So I know that, this journey doesn't end here. This is just, again, a new beginning. Because for a long time, I really thought that personal development was really about becoming someone else, not who I am anymore. And now I really, truly believe and know and really think in all of the things that you can do, it's really just becoming more of who I've always been. So really, if you've been here since the Queer Quest days, I just want to thank you. If you're new here, I just want to welcome you. And if you're currently in a chapter, whether you feel lost, where you feel burnt out, where you feel confused, where you feel closeted, or you feel uncertain about what's next, baby, that is totally okay. I've been there. I can relate to that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes life isn't falling apart. Sometimes it's simply making room for the next version of you to emerge. And so until that person emerges and until next time, you could do whatever it takes to get there. And a journey is all about the next steps. If I can read anything about today, what is your next step? Don't think about the end result or 10 steps down there, or if the fact that you don't even know what the staircase looks like. Just think about what the next step is. And what's one way you can move closer to taking that first step today? Because that's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing here today. All right. Much love, Christiano. Peace out.